Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our very special webinar today, Intention 101, Kicking It Up a Notch. I'm so excited to be here with you all. Before we dive in, I just wanted to let those of you that are new to our community at the California Institute for Human Science, let you know that you are wholeheartedly welcome here. And we're so excited to have you. The California Institute for Human Science is a graduate school and research center focusing on mind, body, spirit, consciousness education. So we have master's and PhD programs in holistic psychology, integral health, and integral noetic sciences. And we also offer a bachelor's completion program. And my name is Nicole Ryle. I'm the Director of Public Programs here at CIHS Enlighten. The Enlighten sector of CIHS is our Public Programs Division. So we offer continuing education, certificate programs, and public offerings like the one here today. So we're, again, like I said, so happy that you are here. If you're new to our community, welcome. If you are, if this is not your first time here, we're so happy to have you back. And then, so just a little bit about today, Intention 101, Kicking It Up a Notch. We're so excited to welcome Cindy Reed. Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for being here. She is a retired nurse working with the Tiller Foundation as the Director of Research. She was a graduate student when she first met Dr. Tiller in 2001 and was the first person to use Dr. William Tiller's theories, methods, and technologies with the human population. With Dr. Tiller's technologies, her double-blind study achieved statistical significance in reducing depression and anxiety. She has used various intention methodologies in her personal life since 1998, and she lives in Iowa. And today, we're also really happy to announce that she is CIHS's newest board member. So we're so happy to have her. You, Cindy, thank you for being here, and hopefully we will have more of these in the future. And then just a little bit about the Tiller Foundation, which I'm sure Cindy's going to go into in her presentation as well. The Tiller Foundation was established by Dr. Tiller and his wife, Jean, as the repository for his work, research, and to bring benefit to humanity. The mission is to preserve, advance, and promote psychoenergetic science research to help make this world a better place for all. Helping everyone become in tune with this great power is what Dr. Tiller's work was all about. And it's the first step to accessing this power is understanding that it is available to everybody. No one is excluded. He wanted all of us to strengthen our connection to source and to not be afraid of the mental power that we all possess. And that's one of the reasons that we thought that this workshop and alignment with Cindy and the Tiller Foundation would be a great addition to CIHS, because that's also what we are all about. So we're so happy to have you here. And then just a little housekeeping for those of you attending live. We will have time for Q&A at the end of Cindy's presentation. So if you can, just jot down your questions that come up throughout, and then we'll open it up to official Q&A towards the end of the presentation. There's two ways that you can do Q&A, either the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand and ask your question directly to Cindy. Okay. So I'll review that as it comes up later in our presentation. And without further delay, I'd like to welcome you all and welcome Cindy. Thank you, Cindy.
So much, Nicole, for your kind words. And thank you for having me.
Yes.
Today to speak to you all about the intention science from psychoenergetic science and the life work of Dr. William Tiller. And I'm going to apologize right off the bat for my voice. It's the change of seasons that's getting me a little bit. But Dr. Tiller's mission really was to bring humanity ways to increase consciousness and ways to raise the level of consciousness on the planet. And I was fortunate to have conducted the first human experiment with him and privileged to work on subsequent experiments. Unfortunately, Dr. Tiller passed in 2022, and he is greatly missed. But let's talk about intention. Many of us have grown up learning about intention. My own awareness started when learning Healing Touch as a nurse in the 80s, and then was expanded in 2001 when Lynn McTaggart's The Field was published, which showed us how everything is connected more than traditional physics ever allowed. In 2005, when Dyer's The Art of Intention made the case for intention as a force in the universe that allows the act of creation to take place. He was first to talk about the space between in popular literature. And of course, those of you that are at least my age probably remember The Secret, which brought working with intention to improve your life to the masses. And it seemed like for a number of years, everyone was doing The Secret. But one of my favorites is the 2010 video classic, What the Bleep? And if you haven't seen that, it's a riot. There are researchers and theoretical scientists taking us through the looking glass of quantum physics into a universe beyond us and looking at questions like, what's a thought made of? What is reality made of? And most important, how does a thought change reality? All of these have been in service of making people aware that there was a power inside all of us that we could use to create a better world. But intention science started more than 70 years ago from the heart and soul of a brilliant Stanford University professor, Dr. William Tiller. He knew that there were ways, not yet discovered or proven, where human consciousness could be used to meaningfully influence physical matter via conscious and focused mental intention to better address and resolve problems and difficulties that were present in today's world. Dr. Tiller received his doctorate in physical metallurgy at the University of Toronto in 1955, though he published his first paper in 1953. He was initially a research scientist and advisory physicist at Westinghouse Research Laboratories in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, until 1964, when he was offered a professorship with tenure at Stanford University. He and his family made their way across the country. He and his wife, Jean, decided to devote themselves regularly to the spiritual side of their lives via meditation. This opened up whole new worlds for him, and they began investigations of human consciousness and the potential for inner enlightenment or inner self-management through the meditation process. After he became chairman of the department in 1966, he continued his regular work throughout his time at Stanford and published over 250 papers just on his regular work. However, he became far more interested in ideas about how human intention could change material objects. And it was while he was on sabbatical in Oxford that he realized from his investigations into human consciousness that human consciousness and intention could significantly influence material reality. He returned to Stanford and gave up his chairmanship of his department, as well as most of his committee work, in order to pursue former research of psychoenergetics that would parallel with the traditional research at Stanford. As he used to say, he had to keep his day job. Despite opposition by most of his Stanford colleagues, he pressed forward solidly and consistently, supported by his wife, Jean. He and his wife continued their daily meditations, giving him insights and information for his work outside his academic responsibilities until he found private funding for his work in 1997. And in 1998, he resigned his professorship at Stanford and worked on psychoenergetic science full-time. So, excuse me. So what we're going to talk about today, here's our agenda. We're going to talk about intention science. We're going to talk about the psychoenergetic model, the research that's been done, and some practical steps that you can take to kick it up a notch using intention science. So I'm going to go pretty fast. There's time for Q&A at the end. And then my email is down in the bottom of the slides. If you have questions later, please feel free to email me. Orthodox science intentionally excludes consciousness from its framework. They don't really have ways to explain or measure the actions or results, so they ignore it. The orthodox science deals with physics in the uncoupled or the incoherent state. So things are, if you think of atoms and molecules, in orthodox science, they're just sort of out there bouncing around. In psychoenergetic science, we deal with the physics of coupled atoms and molecules in a coherent state. And this really expands the framework of orthodox science to include both consciousness and intention as significant variables that need to be explained in the experimental study of nature's many processes. For example, have you heard of the placebo effect? I'll bet you have. In the 1980s, it was estimated that the placebo effect was active in experiments about 15% of the time. Now it's estimated to be about 75% of the time we achieve placebo effect. This is an effect of consciousness on real things that orthodox science has no explanation for, but psychoenergetic science does. If you look on the website, there are a variety of Dr. Tiller's writings from his regular career, from his psychoenergetic career, and he did a series of a little over 30 white papers. And this sort of effect is talked about in white paper number 8. Those are free to download. What Dr. Tiller discovered is that we needed a new frame of reference for looking at this new coupled or coherent state where things are together and communicating. So if you can look again at the white papers, he starts to go into this in white paper number 7. Dr. Tiller's basic premise is that we are all spirits having a human experience. And as such, our consciousness comes from spirit entering dense matter. This gives us not only the world we see, the time and distance world, in which everything is referenced to distance and to time, but also connects us to another world with a different frame of reference, where there's no distance and no time. Let's hear from Dr. Tiller.
Wow.
It's a very complicated business, very interesting business. It's another level of reality, and it will be a future reality. There's a whole class of phenomena, new science, there'll be new technologies. And it's difficult because you're dealing with human consciousness, human biofields, you're dealing with phenomena that appear to function in another reference frame than distance time.
And that reference frame has to be communal, doesn't it?
It's connected.
It's connected.
There's a connectedness about this kind of thing.
Right.
The connectedness couples people. It couples people and things. It couples things and things, etc.
So let's talk about Dr. Tiller's model and listen to him explain it to us.
We have found over the last decade, maybe a little more, that there are two general states of physical reality. There's our normal one, the electric atom molecule one, and that's the distance time related phenomena.
Three-dimensional.
Yes. The other one appears to function in the physical vacuum, and the physical vacuum occupies the space within the fundamental particles that make up the electric atoms and molecules. So it's also in outer space, of course, but the really key place is that it functions there. And it goes faster than the velocity of light, which you can show mathematically. We can't normal equipment in our normal world cannot access that. But with the use of consciousness, which we've shown experimentally, you can begin to access this other level of reality. And you can bring about what we call a coupled state. And the coupled state is a higher, it's called electromagnetic gauge symmetry state of the very space. It conditions the space. And the space phenomena occur there differently.
So you use consciousness as a measuring gauge for that.
We use consciousness as a vehicle. We imprinted, see, from the unstated assumption of science, that's impossible, okay? Experiments in the past, you could take some very advanced yogis and they could produce phenomena.
Right.
But in general, people are not reliable on a day-to-day basis. So what we did to introduce consciousness to 4 target experiments, well-designed target experiments, we imprinted consciousness into a little electronic box.
Wow.
And then we used the electronic box. We switched it on in a space where we were gathering background data, experimental data, and it had a specific intention in the box.
The box itself. So the consciousness imprinted into the box.
We did it from a deep meditative state, 4 people. And we've done it with 6, we've done it with 2. My wife and I were 2 to imprint our laboratory here.
And you imprinted
Years
an
ago.
intention.
An intention into a little simple electronic device. Kind of thing that you could get at Radio Shack in the 1950s.
And it could record the electromagnetic.
It would be a host for it.
I see.
Okay.
Okay.
It is not electromagnetic energy.
Right.
And the way we showed that was after we had imprinted a device. We have an unimprinted device and an imprinted device. We could separate them by 100.
Oh, sorry. Nicole?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
It looks like our screen just, your slides just went off.
Okay.
We have found
We're back on.
last decade
Wow.
Sorry
it's a
about
very
that.
complicated business, very interesting business. It's another level of reality, and it will be a future reality. There's a whole class of phenomena, new science. There'll be new technologies. And it's difficult because you're dealing with human consciousness, human biofields. You're dealing with phenomena that appear to function in another reference frame than distance time.
And that reference frame has to be communal, doesn't it?
It's connected.
It's connected.
There's a connectedness about this kind of thing.
Right.
The connectedness couples people. It couples people and things. It couples things and things, etc.
So let's talk about the psychoenergetic science model from Dr. Tiller again.
Wow.
It's a very complicated business, very interesting business. It's another level of reality, and it will be a future reality. There's a whole class of phenomena, new science. There'll be new technologies. And it's difficult because you're dealing with human consciousness, human biofields. You're dealing with phenomena that appear to function in another reference frame than distance time.
And that reference frame has to be communal, doesn't it?
It's connected.
It's connected.
There's a connectedness about this kind of thing.
Right.
The connectedness couples people. It couples people and things. It couples things and things, etc.
So let's talk about the psychoenergetic science model. Again, we'll hear from Dr. Tiller. Sorry about repeating that last video.
We have found over the last decade, maybe a little more, that there are two general states of physical reality. There's our normal one, the electric atom molecule one, and that's the distance time related phenomena.
Three-dimensional.
Yes. The other one appears to function in the physical vacuum, and the physical vacuum occupies the space within the fundamental particles that make up the electric atoms and molecules. So it's also in outer space, of course, but the really key place is that it functions there, and it goes faster than the velocity of light, which you can show mathematically. We can't normal equipment in our normal world cannot access that, but with the use of consciousness, which we've shown experimentally, you can begin to access this other level of reality, and you can bring about what we call a coupled state. And the coupled state is a higher, it's called electromagnetic gauge symmetry state of the very space. It conditions the space, and the space phenomena occur there differently.
So you use consciousness as a measuring gauge for that.
We use consciousness as a vehicle. We imprinted, see, from the unstated assumption of science, that's impossible, okay? Experiments in the past, you could take some very advanced yogis and they could produce phenomena.
Right.
But in general, people are not reliable on a day-to-day basis. So what we did to introduce consciousness to 4 target experiments, well-designed target experiments, we imprinted consciousness into a little electronic box.
Wow.
And then we used the electronic box. We switched it on in a space where we were gathering background data, experimental data, and it had a specific intention in the box.
The box itself. So the consciousness imprinted into the box.
We did it from a deep meditative state, 4 people. And we've done it with 6, we've done it with 2. My wife and I were 2 to imprint our laboratory here.
And you imprinted an intention.
An intention into a little simple electronic device. Kind of thing that you could get at Radio Shack in the 1950s.
And it could record the electromagnetic.
It would be a host for it.
I see.
Okay.
Okay.
It is not electromagnetic energy. Right. And the way we showed that was after we had imprinted a device. We have an unimprinted device and an imprinted device. We could separate them by 100 meters, turn them off electrically, and just to see what would happen. And in 3 to 5 days, the unimprinted device picked up the imprint. Okay? Wow. And it could influence an experiment just the way this other one could.
Right.
But the boxes were off electrically. So there was no information transfer via electromagnetic radiation that we know of.
Right.
Right.
So therefore,
there has to be another communication channel in the universe that orthodox science is not aware of.
So Dr. Tiller's model considers that there's 2 general states of our levels of reality. One is energy information, that's a distance time. We're all familiar with that. And the other one is consciousness, and that those 2 can be coupled together. Here you see atoms and molecules, which our orthodox science measures and can detect, and you see the seemingly empty space between the molecules and their paths of movement. This is the other level of reality that we operate in, called the vacuum, or the space between. It's the space between the molecules. Orthodox science thinks that there's nothing happening in here, but in fact, this is where everything happens and where we can learn to influence our material world. Dr. Tiller's model here is shown as if you look at the outer 2 layers, the deepest purple layers, those constitute what we know as our 3D physical reality and functions in the framework of distance and time. Each layer's unique substance and a unique infrastructure that we're not going to go into today. Then if you jump across the white space to layer 3 and above, that level of reality operates in a reference space where there's no time, no distance, and in the physical vacuum, or in that space between that we saw in the last slide. That's why you can have a thought about a past event, and it will generate a feeling that it can be just as intense as if you were experiencing that event directly in the 3D reality again. The white layer in between layer 1 and 2 and layer 3 and above is an interface that dictates how well information moves between the 2 levels of reality that we function in. Normally, this interface is in an uncoupled state or an incoherent state. There's atoms and molecules and everything is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Communication between the 2 levels of reality is garbled and unclear, sometimes really clear, but most of the time, not necessarily. Our goal in working with intention is to make this interface level more coherent or more coupled so that the communication between the 2 levels of reality is maximized for each person. So the better we are in touch with our minds, our emotions, and with our spirits. Dr. Tiller was able to define these 2 levels of reality. Our regular distant time-dependent world, which we call direct space. You'll see it on the diagram. It looks like it's labeled the particle branch. And we call that direct space. And then there's a gap, and you'll see the pilot wave branch, which is the mirror space or the reciprocal space, where our layers 3 and above, our mind and emotion and our spirit function. In the particle branch or in the direct space, that's the 3D world that we function in. The interface between these 2 is typically uncoupled and not communicating. But when it's coupled, the communication is regular and frequent. Let me give you an example. You or someone you know may have received a distant healing session. So how does that work? So reciprocal space, the pilot wave branch, is a frequency domain. So that when a specific event, like an event from a healer, is created in direct space, if the healer is coherent, it's communicated through the interface to the frequency reciprocal space, the pilot wave branch. And from there, it's able to be manifested in other reciprocal space back to the person that it's directed to. That pattern is everywhere and the information is available now. So it goes where the healer directs it to go. This is how individuals can heal other humans across the earth at a distance. In this reciprocal space, or this mirror space, the pilot wave branch, that's where we work with human intention. Today's orthodox science can only deal with distance time-dependent phenomena, the particle branch. And so that limits us, of course, to our 3D reality. But consciousness, intention, emotion, mind, spirit, all of that orthodox science is unable to consider is not time or distance dependent. That's why they can't account for it in their framework. It just does not compute. So let me explain a little bit about coupling or coherence. You'll see the box and the atoms molecules on the left is an uncoupled state. Yes, they're there, but they're not necessarily communicating. And on the right is a drawing of coherence, or them functioning in a coupled state. You can hopefully see, you can see the dotted lines connecting them. The greater the coherence or the coupling of the interface layer, the broadcast space, the target space, the more robust the communication is for the information between the layers. And let me define those just a little bit. The broadcast space is the space in the room or the area that we're broadcasting to. And the target space is really the person that we're targeting for this intention, information, and communication. Part of every broadcast intention, we focus first on increasing this coupling, increasing the coherence of the broadcast space, the target space, and the target person. So we're really focused on increasing that interface and its ability to communicate between the layers. Here's our model of the path of action. Let's say an intention from the spirit domain is communicated to the mind and the emotion domain, which is actually in reciprocal space, that frequency space that we looked at. This is communicated through the interspace there, which you'll see is kind of chaotic and not very organized. And in that space is really made up of the acupuncture meridians and the chakras. And depending on how coupled or coherent that interface is, the intention is then communicated to begin to manifest in D space, direct space. So let's look at it another way. If there's an intention in direct space, if you have an intention that you're working on and you have a coherent interface, then that intention can be communicated through our space up to the mind domain, up to spirit, and in reciprocal space. So it communicates through the acupuncture meridians and the chakras, and depending on how coupled it is, the intention is communicated and can then come back and be manifest in D space, direct space. So we're always asked, how long does this take to manifest an intention? Dr. Tiller did many experiments to answer that question, and of course the answer is it depends. In general, when you start, an unconditioned space takes about a month or so to become conditioned. So in the experiments with water, Dr. Tiller was able to raise the pH of water 1 pH unit in about 4 weeks. As he repeated the experiments, the space was already conditioned, the communication was already coupled, so that speeded up the time that it took to conduct the experiment. But with humans, our experiments show that it takes on average about 3 months for the conditioning to take place. We're a little more complicated than water. And the intention starts to manifest after that. For some, it happens much faster, and for some, much slower, because there are so many variables to control. So, and the other thing that is key for us when an intention is manifesting, let's go back to the other slide. When an intention is manifesting up into the spirit domain, if your intention is not in concert with your soul's path for this lifetime, then the intention won't manifest. And Dr. Tiller long realized the power of his device and put a fail-safe that we maintain today in every device, so that intentions that aren't for the highest good or in concert with a person's high soul spirit cannot be manifest with our device. Anyway, so for example, we've done a lot of work with inanimate and human objects, and I'll just tell you about one of our most remarkable cases. This is probably the longest that we've ever had for an intention to manifest. We had a man who had a rheumatoid arthritis condition, and he got a custom intention to deal with this disease. And for 2 years, we broadcast that intention to him, seemingly with no results. His disease didn't lessen. So we stopped the intention and went about our merry way with our experiments, trying to figure out what happened. We heard from him 3 years after the broadcast stopped. And he had apparently, as he reported, he woke up one day and his arthritis was gone. His physician said he had a spontaneous remission, a miracle, but he attributed his spontaneous remission to the broadcast. And, you know, we like to think that too, although we cannot prove that. The shortest period of time we've ever had was in our autism experiment. We had a little 4-year-old girl in Australia. She was nonverbal, and she had never slept through the night. And within 24 hours of receiving the broadcast, her mom reported that she slept through the night. And the next day, she said 20 words in correct sequence, and she had not spoken before that. So again, how long does this take? The answer is it really depends. And we don't know enough about the mechanics of it to really control for the speed of manifestation. So here's a picture of the device that Dr. Tiller invented to broadcast these intentions. But before you broadcast, you have to carefully design your intention, focusing on the outcome or the state of being that you're intending for. Then you need at least 2 people, 4 to 6 is better, who have a high degree of inner self-management. Longtime meditators are usually a group that have well-regulated inner self-management. Because your imprinters have to be able to focus. And they sit around a table with a device in the middle. One person reads the intention and all focus on it until it feels complete. Then the device is taken to the place that you want to broadcast. It's plugged in and the broadcasting begins. There's more detail about this process in Dr. Tiller's UED IHD Imprinting Handbook on the Tiller Foundation website under the tab Purchase the UED. So really, let's talk about the research now for a moment. The research actually falls into 2 categories, the human and the non-human studies. Of course, the non-human studies came first in 1997, and the human studies started in about 2002. Let's hear from Dr. Tiller.
And there's been a body of data for at least 150 years having to do with another aspect of nature, the things that people have called parapsychology. I call it psychoenergetics.
Right.
And because it involves aspects of the psyche and aspects, higher dimensional aspects of ourselves.
Right.
And
the energy that comes from that. Is it an energy field?
Of course, there's generally always energy relationships or information relationships. Okay, let me give you an example. 3 kinds of medicine. Take a glass of water, put some bacteria in it, and then sprinkle some silver colloidal particles, very, very small particles, bigger than nano, but pretty small. It kills the bacteria. And that, people took the idea, oh, you have to have physical contact of the silver with the bacteria, and that kills them. And that's what led to chemical medicine, which was thought to be that you have to have the chemical there to do this inside yourself.
Right.
However, more recently, if you take a fluorescent tube and you make the electrodes out of silver and you ignite a discharge and take the output light and you shine it on this glass of water with bacteria, you kill the bacteria.
Same way.
Yeah, so it isn't physical contact, but it looks like it's at least one or more photons within the natural silver spectrum that kill the bacteria. However, we sit in meditation and we can imprint into this simple electrical device an intention to kill the bacteria. We haven't done this experiment, but we could do that experiment and then just flip it on and it will kill the bacteria. The first one led to chemical medicine. The second one leads to energy medicine.
Right.
The third one leads to information medicine.
Wow.
So the first information medicine studies were really done, the very first ones were done with water. Dr. Tiller wanted to know if he could imprint consciousness into this device and raise the pH of water up one whole pH unit without any direct chemical additions, just with the application of human consciousness via intention. The magnitude of the change was either he did it a variety of ways, pH up or pH down. So he did the experiment. He did it a variety of ways, and this is all detailed in one of his first papers in 1999. Actually, it's number 74 of the published papers on the website. But he did this experiment a variety of times. And then he decided to see how distance played, because remember, we're operating in reciprocal space where there's no time, no distance. So he took the device and he moved the device across the room. So it wasn't next to the experiment anymore. And he got pH up, and with the other device got pH down. Then he took the device and he moved it across his property. He had about 2 acres at that time. And same result, pH up and then pH down. From there, he decided to conduct an experiment with a friend of his in Springfield, Missouri, where the water was in Springfield and he was broadcasting from his home in his lab in Arizona. Same result, the pH went up or the pH went down. And the last variation of this that we're going to talk about, he did a number of variations. The last variation is he did from his laboratory in Arizona to a laboratory in Milan, Italy, over 6,000 miles. And the pH started to go up almost immediately as soon as they switched the device on. So he really was operating in that reciprocal space. The second set of experiments had to do with an increase in the activity or in the concentration of a liver enzyme, ALP, alkaline phosphatase. And so he was able to show that just with intention alone, he could increase alkaline phosphatase. And he did the same sort of variations right next to the liver enzyme across the room and a variety of variations on that. Distance did not make a difference. The third set of experiments with enzymes, he decided to take a look at fruit flies to speed up their maturation time. Normally, fruit flies have about a 40-day cycle, but an intention was broadcast to change the ratio of ATP to its precursor ADP. So this was going to, if this worked, it was going to speed up the maturation time. And in fact, the ratio of ATP to ADP changed, and the maturation time increased for the the maturation time decreased for the fruit flies by 25%. In all of these experiments, it appears as if the electromagnetic waves emitted by the oscillators in the device, which are photons, interacted not with the direct space of the water, the enzymes, the fruit flies, but the changes were driven by the interaction with the reciprocal space counterparts of the water, the enzyme, and the fruit flies. These experiments are detailed in Dr. Tiller's first two books, and a summary of these can be found in chapter 3 of Psychoenergetic Science, a Second Copernican Revolution. Now to the human experiments. Dr. Tiller was happily going along with fruit flies when we met in 2001, and I convinced him to let me use his technology to try to decrease depression and anxiety in humans. I'd been working in mental health services for about 25 years by then, and I knew medicine had very few answers for mental health. Unfortunately, our positive results didn't convince my administrators to let me recruit patients for an intention experiment. In fact, they thought I was crazy, so no matter how much science I presented, Dr. Tiller was not surprised, as he'd seen the reaction over and over at Stanford. So I kept volunteering to work with Dr. Tiller's studies and was looking to find out what intention would not work on. I'm still looking, by the way. Since the first double-blind studies, we've conducted 3 pilot studies that I'm going to tell you about. And all 3 of these are detailed in white papers 16, 30, 31, and 32 on the website. And the self-compassion pilot can be found in the International Journal of Healing and Caring, Volume 2, number 22. So let me tell you about the specific studies. The fact that my hospital administration wouldn't let me recruit patients for this crazy study didn't stop me. I knew some other physicians and was able to recruit 182 adult subjects for this from all over the United States, Canada, Pennsylvania, California, and Mexico. We measured progress in this study. We constructed, actually Dr. Tiller and I constructed a broadcast intention to decrease depression and anxiety. And we measured progress monthly using a standard measure called a state trait anxiety inventory and the Zoom self-rating scale for depression. The state trait inventory measures state anxiety, which is I'm anxious because something is happening, and also measures trait anxiety, which is I'm an anxious person. I have an anxious personality. We didn't know what we would get, so the first phase we set at 3 months. At the 3-month mark, there was no significant difference in depression or in trait anxiety, and state anxiety was starting to approach significance at p equals 0.089. The control group showed no change. At 8 months, however, we recruited them people for another 8-month trial. We looked at the analysis of the post-intervention from phase 1 to the post-intervention from phase 2. So we took them at the end of the first phase, and then we took them through another 8 months of intention. And the post-intervention phase 2 showed statistically significant reduction in state anxiety at 0.001, which means that less than 1 in 1,000 chances that the result was a random occurrence. Trait anxiety, less than even 1 in 1,000 chances that it was a random occurrence. And depression was significant at 0.003, less than 3 chances in 1,000 that the result was a random occurrence. And there was no significant change in the control group. The self-compassion pilot study was next. A psychologist approached Dr. Tiller and wanted to study self-compassion. Her idea was that improved self-compassion would result in improved lives. The 31 subjects she recruited from her practice received broadcast intention for increased self-compassion for 12 months. They completed 4 outcome measures every month. Self-compassion did improve over time, depression did decrease over time, and self-esteem improved. However, we saw no change in state trait anxiety. This was a lesson for us, as in our intention, there was no direct statement about reducing anxiety for the participants. We had assumed that potentially, if self-compassion increased, that anxiety would decrease. We did not find this to be true. So we learned a lesson that if we wanted to see a result, we needed to put it directly in the intention statement. And again, this is published in the International Journal of Healing and Caring, by Gabriel Hilberg et al., volume 22, number 2. The next exciting study was the Autism Spectrum Disorder Child Pilot Study. We worked with an autism specialist and designed an intention to increase integration and increase functionality of kids in social interaction, language, cognitive functioning, and overall health. 39 children and at least one caregiver completed the study, with the caregiver rating the child on a standard measure. It's called the Autism Treatment and Evaluation Checklist every month. That score from the checklist improved over time and was statistically significant, and there was less than 1 in 1,000 chances that this occurred randomly. And on each one of the subsets of this measure, the children improved on social interaction, expressive language, cognitive functioning, and overall health, to the point that all of these results, there was less than 1 in 1,000 chance that these were occurring randomly. And this study is detailed in white paper 30 and 31. At the same time, we worked with the parents. We did a broadcast intention to assist the parents with stress that ensues as a result of having an autistic child. There were 38 caregivers who completed a monthly Zoom self-rating depression scale. But in this study, our results were mixed. Month to month, there was change, initially towards improvement, but then the change backwards towards baselining. Excuse me. There was a significant overall time trend of 0.04, meaning that over time, the scores did improve. And when contrasted with the baseline scores, there was a significant decrease in the score, significant decrease in the depression in the 4th month, in the 7th month, and the 9th month. But at the end of the year, the mean difference, no mean difference was detectable. So the overall result of this study was that there was no change in depression for these parents. We did, however, find a statistically significant strong negative correlation between individual children's scores and their parents' scores, indicating that as the children improved, the depression scores did increase. This is a result that has baffled us, and we've been looking for funding and a group to try another study on. One of the things that we know about working with intention is that the direction or the specific language that you use to convey the information is very, very important. And clearly, we did not have it exactly spot on for this study. Currently, we do have a couple research studies going, focused mostly on performance improvement. We're broadcasting an intention for improved individual sports performance to a group of college athletes during their sports seasons, and we'll tabulate the results after the season ends next spring. We're also working with an educational institution to achieve their overall performance metrics for the school year. They're broadcasting from their location and are having some interesting anecdotal results so far. And we're working also with a wellness center group who has been a specific small group who's been attending a specific program for over 10 years, focusing on their individual goals and the wellness center goals at the same time. We just started this one, so no preliminary data to report yet. So how can you take advantage of Dr. Tiller's work? Let's hear from Dr. Tiller again.
Everybody has consciousness. To me, and there's a dictionary version of awareness, awakeness, so on. It's trivial. It's true, but it's trivial. My own working hypothesis is that consciousness is a byproduct of spirit entering dense matter. And spirit can only enter dense matter if one does work on themselves, inner work, to build infrastructure into self.
Right.
And as you build infrastructure into self, more spirit enters, therefore more consciousness exists within you, and you become aware of things you were never aware of before.
Right.
And then you do more work on yourself, and you become more conscious, and you unfold step by step.
Right.
All of us have within us the capability of doing that. All of us have the infrastructure. Our experiments show, I can relate how and why, but they show that the human acupuncture meridian system is already at the coupled state of physical reality, which means that humans using unconscious intentions or conscious intentions can move chi. Chi in my modeling is magnetoelectric energy. It's the counterpart of electromagnetic. It comes from the higher gauge symmetry state. Human biofield builds this space around them.
Right.
It becomes a sacred space, becomes them. I suppose it is the kind of things that regular practitioners built over centuries in various cathedrals.
The Shaolin monks or
yes,
Tibetan.
These things are all real physical realities. They are all capable, and every human is capable of building themselves to that as they start to practice this and really work on it.
So how can you take advantage of Dr. Tiller's work? The first thing to do, of course, is build your infrastructure, and you can do it yourself. As Dr. Tiller said, we all have to build our own infrastructure. We all have it, but it takes some focus to build it out. There's many ways to do this through meditation, Qigong, heart math, monitoring your heart rate variability, getting regular energy work, massages, aligning your chakras, your acupuncture meridians, etc. You can find Dr. Tiller's thoughts about these, starting with his papers in the 70s, in particular, number 7, Physical Characteristics of Acupuncture Points and Meridians. Number 13, Disease as a Biofeedback Device for the Transformation of Man. And 29, Field Effects of Acupuncture Points and Meridians, along with white paper number 13 with preventative medicine routines, and number 18, his very own affirmations. But the most important thing is not to pick the right one, because there are many right ones. The important thing is to pick one that will work for you, or a variety of methods that will work for you. Dr. Tiller documented his journey early on, and you can find the details and the steps he took starting in the 70s with his published papers on the website. You can also find his white papers there and his books and videos, and there's about 150 YouTube videos of Dr. Tiller speaking about his ideas and his methods and his results for free on YouTube. All you have to do is start down the path. You could also get a little help from a device. You can, on the website, purchase a device, an unimprinted device, write your own intention, get a friend or 2 or 3 to help you imprint it, and you're on your way. We do send instructions for doing this with the device, but a word of caution, make sure your intention is specific. So for example, instead of lose 10 pounds, be more specific, like change my eating habits so I stop eating 2 hours before I go to bed, or change my health habits so that I exercise for 10 minutes every day, or excuse me, or any other very specific thing that you want changed so that you live a healthier life. And what we found in our research is the more specific, the better. And there is a debate, of course, in the intention community about whether it's better to be vague or more specific. Some schools of thought recommend vague, so that the universe can bring you what is best for you, things that you may not have thought of. In my opinion, this may work better with things such as you want a new car versus wanting the apple red Porsche with a black interior. In the Tiller model, we're inserting information into reciprocal space and the interface. And so the more specific, the better. And in general, we work with people and results that impact people and consciousness. We don't work with things. Another thing that you can do is to purchase a 24/7 general broadcast. From our research, we put together 3 broadcasts for the general public and 2 for autism. We broadcast these 24/7 from our conditioned space in the lab in Arizona. And you can subscribe to any of them that you wish. These are the general broadcasts that we currently have. So we're broadcasting right now a physical health intention, a mental health and better memory intention, financial abundance and prosperity intention, and autism spectrum disorder for children, which includes adults with ASD, and ASD caregivers. When you subscribe to a broadcast, you give us your name, your address, your cell phone number, of course, your credit card, and your name, address, and cell phone all act as locators in that second level of reality that we function in. The broadcast actually has two parts. One, to increase the coherence in the interface between your realities and increase the coherence in the space that you're living in at your address, and also broadcast through your cell phone, because we find many people are mobile these days, but most people have a cell phone with them. So we're broadcasting to the interface and inserting specific information into reciprocal space. So what kind of information are we inserting, you might wonder? I'll show you some highlights, and if you're interested, send me an email and we can send you the intention that you're interested in. So for example, physical health, we have instructions in there for robust well-being, proper functioning of the physical organism, minimizing conscious or subconscious self-limiting or self-sabotaging beliefs or actions, attaining exceptional and high-functioning physical health, choosing a balanced, healthy diet, optimizing the microbiome, and having attitudes and actions that support normal, healthy conditions for operations of all your body systems. Also eliminating any conditions that prevent or inhibit you from being perfectly normal, perfectly healthy, and a perfectly functioning organism. Committing to regular exercise, flexibility, good posture, and hand strength, which is important as you get older. Maintaining healthy skin, clear eyes, and steady vision. Maintaining a normal body weight and body mass index between 18 and 25. Getting adequate sleep and rest, as well as a low resting heart rate, blood glucose level 100 mg per liter and below, HDL cholesterol above 90, reducing inflammation, having a strong constitution, maintaining healthy and robust balance in all your fields, and rejuvenating and refreshing yourself so to significantly reduce mental, physical, and emotional risk. If you subscribe or purchase a subscription for someone, this information will be broadcast to your home, your cell phone, and yourself 24/7. So for the physical health, I'll just tell you my own story about each one of these, because of course, being a part of the Tiller Foundation, I was on board with receiving these broadcasts 24/7. And at the time, I'd come through menopause and had about 10 pounds that I hadn't been able to get rid of for about 15 years. So it'd been with me for a while. And so after about, I got the broadcast. I didn't notice anything different, but then at about the 3-month mark, all of a sudden I noticed that I was about 5 pounds less and that I wasn't eating sweets so much and I was exercising more. And I seemed to have developed a few more healthy habits. And by the end of 6 months, I had my 10 pounds off. We also have a broadcast for mental health and better memory, to expand mental acuity and processing, to have exceptional mental health, to maximize self-enhancing beliefs and self-beneficial programs that improve the attainment of exceptional mental health and memory, and reduce and maintain the body and brain to be free of inflammation, avoiding toxic and inflammatory things, providing your brain with raw materials for neurogenesis and neuroplasticity to regenerate and be resilient, improved and reliable memory, learn new skills, challenge the brain, empower the brain, reduce levels of stress, and manifest an exceptional ability to cope, as well as remove mental blocks, for recall of memories and completely release all memories that debilitate your well-being. Develop, learn, and make decisions. Have your mind critically think, be open to new experiences, and be in alignment with the soul's purpose. And halt and repair any processes that would lead to decline of the brain's functioning. And move all processes out of confusion and dementia and back to full awareness. And again, we learned from our research that on the average, it takes about 3 months to increase coherence in a person and to start to see the results of these intentions. And for me, of course, I got the mental health intention when it first came out. It was at quite a time in my life. My father had been dying for a number of years. We took care of him at home from dementia. And this mental health broadcast started 3 days after his funeral. And I was a little bit worried because when I lost my brother in the 90s, I went into a deep depression and had a difficult time coming back to life. And so I was concerned about this, but I started receiving the broadcast. And what I found is that I've been able to grieve, still function, and to transition peacefully and smoothly to a life that doesn't involve taking care of my dad. So it's been a godsend for me personally. Then, of course, lastly, we have financial abundance and prosperity. So this one is focused on living vital, happy lives, transforming beliefs that enable the realization of your full potential for life, building an ever-increasing awareness of divine prosperity and abundance, recognizing and appreciating prosperity and the abundance that you do have. It directs an awakening to be a channel and a responsible steward of the divine prosperity for yourself and others, removing all mental barriers to preventing consciousness of abundance and financial well-being, manifesting and sharing prosperity, positively responding to opportunities for manifesting prosperity, and allow divine abundance to flow freely in and through yourself. And again, it takes about, on the average, 6 months for a person to notice results. Some things move very quickly and some things move slowly. We recommend trying these intentions for at least a year, as in our research, all subjects had an effect at 12 months. And so for me, when I started receiving this intention, no, a bag of money did not drop out of the sky. I didn't really expect that, but I was hopeful, but it didn't happen. Nor did I win the lottery. Of course, you have to play to win. But last fall, my husband was all set to retire, and I was dreading the transition from our employment budget to our retirement budget. We tried for a while to live on our retirement budget, and it didn't go as well as we had hoped. But right around the broadcast started, and he retired, and right around the 4-month mark in March of this year, suddenly I wasn't worried about finances anymore, and the money just seemed to be there when we need it. It didn't seem like we were depriving ourselves at all. So I was quite shocked. My concern was gone, and even though nothing had really changed with our finances. And now we're a year into it, and things are fine. Things are just as fine as they were when he was employed. And in April, we were notified by our accountant that we get a tax refund from the IRS, and that's never happened in the 18 years of our marriage. And you can see others' experiences on the website. So for these intentions, we do have a special offer from you for the Tiller Foundation. If you buy 2 intention broadcasts, we'll give you the 3rd one for free. The first intention is $50, second is $45, third is $45. You can have all 3 for $95. Just go on the website, use the code CIHS1123, put it in at checkout, sign up for all 3 of your intentions. They can be for all 3 for you, all 3 for somebody else, any combination of any 3 people, whatever it is that you want to do. And I got to tell you, they make great gifts. So that is available for you as a result of your attending this program. And you can buy as many sets of 3 as you like. You can also get, another way to use the tiller work is you can purchase a custom intention, where we actually work with you to construct a very specific intention according to Dr. Tiller's methods, using his tutoring of us and our experience to craft the best intention for the outcomes you want. We then imprint your device and send it to you so you can broadcast it from your location. We re-imprint it remotely 3 more times, so you have 12 months of broadcast intention for that custom intention. In addition, you can also purchase the custom intention. We can do all of that work, and we can broadcast it from our space, our lab that's been highly conditioned for over 20 years. So that's an additional fee as well. So I've covered 4 general ways that you can kick up your intention practice at least a notch. You can start to increase your own inner self-management by taking advantage of the free materials at the Tiller Foundation and YouTube to enhance your practice, expand your abilities, and become more coherent, embodying more consciousness and becoming more aware. You can purchase a device and instructions, and you can do your own intention. You can purchase an intention broadcast for physical health, mental health, financial abundance, or prosperity, 3 for the price of 2. That's the best option, especially if you have limited time. Or you can work with us to purchase a custom intention. So what's the future? It's clear that we're only beginning to understand how intention works and how we can use it to raise consciousness and improve humanity. I love this cartoon. This is really how it works in science, isn't it? We know the formula, and then a miracle occurs. Actually, what we don't understand, we call a miracle. But because of Dr. Tiller's work, we're closer today than we ever have been to understanding and using intention. However, more needs to be done. We are considering teaching and expanding the Tiller Foundation imprinting team. If you are interested, sign up for our newsletter on the website. When we offer it, it will be announced there. We're always looking for new partners and new research opportunities. Of course, like every organization, we need more funding. Donations are always appreciated. And our ultimate goal is to endow a chair with research support at a U.S. academic center. Over 40 years ago, a benefactor endowed a chair position in parapsychology at the University of Edinburgh. And this program over time turned out 70 or 80 PhDs in parapsychology. And that changed the landscape of parapsychology in the UK and in Europe. We need to do the same for intention science, and we hope with funds generated from our work that we can endow a chair at a U.S. academic center. So know, every time you subscribe for an intention, you are helping create the next generation of psychoenergetic scientists. Thank you. And now I think it's time for questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Cindy. That was very enlightening on many levels. Yes, and so many different ways that you can take charge and set intentions and let really the science, right, do the work for you. Yeah, that's excellent. So yes, we have a few questions coming in. One is in the chat box from Arlene. What are the leading academic centers for this work? And then Paula will come to you next, okay?
We don't have this work at any leading academic centers yet. So all of this work is done and funded privately at the Tiller Foundation. And so we've been in discussion with a few, but we have nothing definitive at this time. And so we're looking to raise the money because, as you know, academic centers aren't looking for more ways to spend their funds. They're looking for more ways to recruit funding. So we think if we can generate the funds to endow a chair, we'll be able to get psychoenergetic science going at a major university.
Great. Okay, Paula, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask Cindy your question.
Thank you both. My question is, a group of us here in Canada have something called Power of 8 group, which is started by Lynn McTaggart. And want to specifically narrow in on how to make the best intention statement. Like, for example, tomorrow night, it's this couple, they have one egg left, and they're really trying to have a baby. And you know, the whole time you're talking about, oh, it takes 3 months, and I'm thinking, oh no, they only have one egg, and it's getting imprinted next week or implanted. How do we narrow in on whether it's this couple or whoever else making the best intention statement? Like I listened to what somebody said, maybe Dr. Tiller, about, you know, for the highest good of the soul's purpose. And so maybe that should be stated in every single intention. But is there certain, like, you know, acknowledge the bad, so, you know, undo any blockages, fear-based blockages preventing pregnancy and the success of the pregnancy, and then allow, and then boom, what we want to see? Like, is there a formula for intention statements is what I'm getting at.
There is a formula for intention statements. And what I can tell you at this late date is that, and I did the Lynn McTaggart program and was part of a Power of Eight group for a year because I wanted to see what that was all about compared to the Tiller science. And the thing that you can do, that you and the group can do, I assume you meet once a week.
Yes.
So if you know that, so my suggestion to you would be to do all of the things that you already just said, to make it very specific, to remove any blocks, to say exactly what they want with the specifics of the egg and all of that, the date, the time, the, you know, it'll be a long intention. And then I think you do your group, your weekly meeting, and you send the intention into the universe. But if there's a way that you could do it more than once, that would probably be helpful. So one of the things that Tiller found is that it took time to make the changes. So the first issue is the coherence. How coherent is this couple? We have no way of knowing. And in the Lynn McTaggart model, that's not even a consideration. The more you work with intention, though, we know the more coherent you become. But the second part is getting the specifics in there. And of course, a 24/7 broadcast would be the best, but if you can do it more than once, that would probably be helpful to them. But you know, it's impractical to expect the intention group to sit around 24/7 from now until they're being implanted to do the intention. You know,
if I may just also say then, so when we're doing our Power of Eight group, it's usually a new intention target every week. Is that to say that we should be doing the same one again and again and again and again, though?
You know, here's the thing. With the Power of Eight groups, you do it once a week and you send it into the universe, because Lynn's model is that the energy goes out and that spirit acts on that energy. And so what I'm saying to you from the Tiller experience is that he didn't just do the intention once. He sends out a broadcast that's continuous 24/7 because of what we know about the two parts, the coherence and then putting the information in where it can do the most good. What I'm saying to you is that it may be helpful if you could meet an additional time or additional times around the time that they're actually having the event and set close to the time that they're having the event. So I don't have any information on whether it would help to do it weekly, the same intention weekly for a number of weeks. In my group, we had a woman that was, actually she was dying, and her intention was, of course, to live. And what ended up happening after about 8 months, she came to be at peace with the fact that she wasn't going to live. So that was the outcome. But again, remember, the intention is not what your ego wants. The intention is what your spirit wants and what is for your highest good. So that's the thing. Our egos get sometimes.
Love it. Thank you. And I'll just tell you that with your answer, I did add a point that while she's getting the egg implanted, we'll do it then.
Great. Good luck to her.
Thank you all.
Thanks for your question, Paula. Okay, let's see. Ralph, we have a question from Ralph. Ralph, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question to Cindy, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My wife and I knew Dr. Tiller. We were both members of ICEAM, and ions and holos, etc. And I've been working with his model on my own for some time. But as regards the question that the previous caller asked about helping the lady that had one egg left, if we look at Rupert Sheldrake's model of the morphic field and morphic resonance, he has found through his research that the universe has a learning capability, and that the more people that are doing something, the easier it becomes. Consequently, it can take less time if many people are trying to have a successful child and implant or fertilize an egg. So in order to affect a more rapid outcome, it might be helpful for her to include not only her specific friend that her Power of 8 group is working for, but everyone in similar circumstances that has ever expressed such a wish in all universes.
Excellent.
By coupling with those intentions, you now have an intentional field, if you will, that has some real juice to it. Mm-hmm. So that might be helpful.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. One other thing is I am working with some folks to use AI in a way that is intentionally coherent or congruous with the highest good. And AI doesn't always work that way. So it's quite possible to utilize the fail-safe mechanism that you mentioned in conjunction with that. And I will send you an email about that, and maybe we can connect on that concept later, because ultimately there's a technology that I developed for another software project that could utilize both of these and would be patentable and could generate funds for the foundation. And I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Interesting. Thank you so much. That'd be fascinating.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Right. Thanks for your question, Ralph.
Sure.
Yeah, great. We have a question from Jordan in the Q&A box. Oh, and he's a local in San Diego County. Welcome, Jordan. What would the time commitment be being in a volunteer imprinting group? They'd like to know.
We're redoing the way that we do our imprinters now. So at this point, the volunteer imprinters spend 2 mornings a month imprinting. But I think when we decide to go out and expand it, we're going to have a different configuration. And so we haven't really set and settled on what that is yet. But watch our newsletter, and more will be revealed. Great.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have another question from our CIHS's very own Dr. Jelisich. Hi, Dr. J. He's asking, when you purchase an IIED, do they all need to be updated every 3 months?
So what Dr. Tiller found, it's an interesting question, because in his research, he found that the device was a host to the intention for about usually 3 to 6 months. It depended. It seemed to depend on the intention, and it seemed to depend on some other conditions. So out of an abundance of caution, his routine and our practice is to re-imprint the device every 3 months, just to make sure. So we don't wait and test the devices and see when they're waning. Particularly because we're broadcasting intentions 24/7 on the 5 public things, and we have some private intentions that we're doing. We just regularly re-imprint at the 3-month mark. And it's interesting, when we re-imprint, sometimes the re-imprintings are really easy. Sometimes I feel like I sort of get sucked into it, and other times it's really hard. like it's not ready or it doesn't want me there or something. It's just really a fascinating experience, but as a routine practice every 3 months.
Great. Thank you. Dr. J also said he met Dr. Tiller in the early 2000s and has mentioned his work many times in his lectures, and he's going to continue to use intention statements in the development of CIHS and his wellness center. Thanks, Dr. J.
I can do anything to help. Let me know.
Yeah. We also had some comments that a few have already registered for mental health intentions and they're already seeing positive changes. So thank you so much for that comment. Yes. Great. Do we have any more questions out there in the audience? And just as a reminder, this will be the recording will be sent out, and you have all of the slides as well, and you have Cindy's information to be in touch with her. And like I said, hopefully we almost need a part 2 of this, Cindy, right? So maybe in 2024 we can have you back. Oh, and Cindy and I also talked about before we began, this is a really nice day for today because we have a new moon in Scorpio today. So really nice time to think about intentions and what you're looking to invite into your life right now.
Yeah, consciously take note.
Yes, exactly. Great.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for attending and listening. This has been a stunning work. I'm so lucky to have met Dr. Tiller. And again, I apologize for my voice, but if you have any questions or thoughts after we end, please email me. I love to talk about psychoenergetic science.
Yes, that is very apparent, and we appreciate you being here and putting this science with the spirituality. That's one of the cornerstones of our institution is adding the science to all of this spiritual work that's out there, and this goes hand in hand with that. So I just put the CIHS website into the chat box. If anybody would like more information on our offerings at CIHS, please visit our website or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to chat with you more. And we'll look forward to having Cindy again, and we'll look forward to more work that everybody in attendance today can do with the Tiller Foundation and intention setting. So thank you. Thank you for being here, Cindy. All right. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.